As Chile prepares for the constitutional referendum on Sunday, measures are being adopted to prevent the spread of COVID-19 at the polls. Brazil's far-right President Jair Bolsonaro has blocked the use of a Chinese-developed COVID-19 vaccine candidate in the treatment of Brazilian patients. Armenia's Prime Minister has ruled out a diplomatic solution to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. With only 4 days to go until the constitutional referendum in Chile, the level of representation of the indigenous population in the process remains unclear. Although the recognition of indigenous communities has been debated from the very start of the process to convene this historic referendum, up to this point the Senate has not reached an agreement on the issue, with senators of the Constitutional Commission accusing representatives of the ruling party of boycotting it. Right-wing senators are trying to impose an electoral register for indigenous people only, in addition to the national register, in order to elect the delegates from those groups to the Senate, so their representation would be conditioned on the number of registered people. Meanwhile, the opposition proposes full electoral participation of the indigenous peoples in the national electoral register, and according to their proportion among the total number of inhabitants. And to discuss the context in Chile in the lead-up to the constitutional referendum this Sunday, we welcome our correspondent Alejandro Kirk. Alejandro, thank you for joining us.
Katrina, good evening.
Alejandro, it's been a year since President Sebastián Piñera ordered a state of emergency in response to widespread anti-government protests. What can you tell us about new revelations regarding that move?
Well, that's a very amusing issue. Last year, President Piñera on national TV and surrounded by the military, generals, officers of the army, announced that the country was at war against an enemy that was powerful and merciless, and that would stop nothing in spreading violence in the country. And today, local newspaper leaked a report by the military intelligence on which President Piñera based this war that was widely interpreted at the time as a war against his own people, and rightly so. The report was written by the military intelligence, saying that 600 agents from Venezuela and Cuba had entered the country under the command of the Bolivarian Intelligence Service, SEBIN, of Venezuela, in order to destabilize the country and overthrow the government. These 600 combatants were well armed and well trained in guerrilla camps in Cuba, according to the report. And the leader of this contingent was nobody less than Pedro Carvajalino, a Venezuelan citizen. Pedro Carvajalino is the host of a TV show on national TV, the Venezolana de Televisión state TV in Venezuela, and he's well known for being an activist for the Chavismo, for the government of President Maduro. Carvajalino obviously has nothing to do with guerrillas or military or intelligence work, but he was also quoted as being an activist, a guerrilla promoter in Bolivia, because Carvajalino went to Bolivia last year when the fraud was denounced by the OAS. We know what happened to that. There was no fraud, but there was a coup. And Carvajalino had been visiting the country, covering the elections for the Venezuelan state TV, and he was also quoted by the Interior Minister Arturo Murillo, who's now in the spotlight in Bolivia for a violation of human rights. And Murillo denounced also Carvajalino as being top commander of infiltrators from Venezuela in Bolivia. It turns out that Piñera at the time said that he had received reports from intelligence service of neighboring countries. So the speculation is whether Bolivia was one of these, the sources of one of these reports. the ridiculous assertion and the whole issue that a country that portrays itself as being serious and efficient, putting together a report of this kind, which was proved wrong at any point of this popular uprising, which started a year ago, shows us that efficiency and that seriousness is just probably a joke, and the government has made a fool of itself by acting upon it and believing its contents, of which more responsible observers say is those who believe it than those who wrote it. So
Alejandro, we
right
see
now everybody is reacting to that, and we don't know what Piñera has to say. He has kept silent so far.
Alejandro, yet another example of how the Chilean government has been attacking the anti-government protests. Moving on to the constitutional referendum that's going to take place this Sunday. Measures are being adopted supposedly to prevent the spread of COVID-19. What can you tell us about these measures and the response from voters?
Well, yes, there are 44,697 electoral positions in the country, 25% more than in the last election, in order to facilitate to keep the social distance and avoid the spread of COVID-19. In these places, the health ministry has been issuing guidelines in order to avoid contact, keep distance, and all that. But on the same token, the government announced today that electoral observers from the different options at stake in this, participating in this plebiscite, which are for the approval of a new constitution or the rejection of that constitution, must go to these almost 44,700 electoral posts carrying a notary public certificate allowing them to be observers. Well, this bureaucracy is not only difficult to achieve in 2 days. Remember that there are only two working days to go to the for the plebiscite, and it costs about $5 each accreditation. So that will mean a huge problem for those trying to keep this process clean. And the specter of fraud has risen in the past days because an infiltrator of a co infiltrated into social organization in a working class neighborhood was carrying 2 valid ID cards, and both of them were registered as voters in the electoral system. So many are asking now how many infiltrators, intelligence officers, or just public officials are carrying valid identity cards, allowing them to vote in the upcoming plebiscite. And the other problem is that these elections will be, this plebiscite will be held under a state of exception that has not been lifted since March, and also a night curfew. So the repressive measures are on the agenda. The atmosphere is very heavy. We have seen brutal repression in the past few days. So nothing easy, nothing calm is expected to happen on Sunday. And on the other hand, probably as the approval option is expected to win a landslide majority, there will be celebrations in the evening at Dignity Square, and probably there will be more repression. We don't know. The public transportation system was announced today to run late on the evening of Sunday. The last results, the final results, are expected to be released by midnight. But the curfew will start then by 1 a.m. In the morning of Monday. So people will not have time to go back home and to keep those celebrations at the Dignity Square on Sunday. Katrina.
Alejandro, thank you so much for joining us once again today, and no doubt all eyes will be on Chile on Sunday on this historic referendum. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we turn now to Bolivia, where the Supreme Electoral Tribunal has now counted 89% of the ballots cast in Sunday's general elections, in which the movement towards socialism secured a landslide victory. Our correspondent in Bolivia, Camila Escalante, brings us more details.
Bolivia's petitas are gathering this evening in a plaza behind me. The official vote count continues, and with nearly 89% of votes counted, the movement towards socialism has obtained 54.5% of the vote, putting Luis Arce 25 points ahead of Carlos Mesa, who looks as if he won't be able to reach the 30% mark. This is a massive victory for the Bolivian social movement bases and a huge loss for the neoliberal and U.S. puppet wing of the country, including the de facto administration of Jean Áñez and coup strategist and serial repressor Arturo Murillo. He himself ordered 2 massacres, and he expected to remain in power through negotiations with Mesa. It's a huge loss for them as well. Fernando Camacho is in 3rd place, still with 14% of the vote, and with these results, Luis Arce has led a much more resounding victory than that of 2019, when a decisive win was met with an OAS-led coup, and Evo Morales, who should have been inaugurated as president, was forced into exile. Numerous studies, beginning with the Center for Economic Policy Research, confirmed the falsification of claims by the OAS electoral mission controlled by its Secretary General Luis Almagro. Now today, the Puebla Group, SELAG, and many other voices from around the continent are calling for Almagro's resignation for his role in the bloody coup.
Thank you so much, Camila. On Tuesday, far-right Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro decided to block the use of a Chinese-developed COVID-19 vaccine candidate in the treatment of Brazilian patients, despite the country's COVID-19 death toll ranking 2nd in the world at over 154,000 fatalities. The decision comes just a day after Brazil's health minister noted that the vaccine would be added to the country's immunisation programme. Our correspondent Brian May brings us the details.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro blocked the arrival of 46 million doses of a COVID-19 vaccine today that has been jointly developed by São Paulo's renowned public health institute, Instituto Butantan, with the Chinese company Sinovac. In an angry tweet justifying his action, the far-right president said that Brazilians can't be used as guinea pigs for anyone. Nevertheless, today, in a clinical trial sponsored by the Brazilian federal government using the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, a Brazilian volunteer died. Now, the difference between the 2 vaccines is that the São Paulo vaccine enabled complete technology transfer and Brazilian manufacturing of the vaccine. Brazil is a leader in vaccine manufacture around the world. The deal that Bolsonaro struck with Oxford AstraZeneca calls for no technology transfer and no refund if the vaccine proves to not be effective. So as opposition lawmakers in Congress accuse President Bolsonaro of disregard for human life in blocking the vaccine's arrival in São Paulo, many people on the social media are asking who's allowing who to be a guinea pig.
Thank you, Brian. And moving on to other news, the United Kingdom's government continues to support acts of destabilisation in Venezuela, with the latest move related to the funding of a Venezuelan anti-government coalition. Independent journalist John McEvoy brings us details on the revelations.
Today in Declassified UK, myself and Matt Kennard revealed that the UK Foreign Office is funnelling almost £500,000 to an anti-government coalition in Venezuela. This coalition is called the Anti-Corruption Coalition. Its national coordinator is a woman called Yoneid Sanchez, who has been very vocal in her criticism of the Venezuelan government, as well as in her support of Venezuelan opposition figure Juan Guaidó. Now, the UK appears to be the only external funder of this unit, and funding is going to continue throughout the near future. The group was also established by the Venezuelan chapter of Transparency International. Now, Transparency International's dealings in Latin America have been quite problematic over recent years, especially in Venezuela.
Meanwhile, the involvement of Transparencia Venezuela in the failed coup against late Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez in 2002 was revealed. Likewise, documents released by WikiLeaks have shown that the former British ambassador to Venezuela was a strictly protected US informant.
Transparencia Venezuela has the leader of it was found to have communicated with the National Endowment for Democracy in 2002 in support of the coup against Hugo Chavez. Transparencia Venezuela as well has released faulty reports about various different government institutions in Venezuela over recent years. And the founder and director of Transparency Venezuela is also linked to various different US-funded organisations and institutions, such as the National Endowment for Democracy. At the same time, we found that the UK ambassador to Venezuela, Andrew Soper, was formally named in WikiLeaks documents as a strictly protect US informant. Now, we're not sure if that relationship continues. However, that would be quite interesting to know. However, the UK Foreign Office and the British Embassy in Caracas have stonewalled all of our efforts to ask them questions about these matters.
The leaders of Cyprus, Egypt and Greece on Wednesday renewed an invitation to Turkey to become a partner in reaping the potential benefits of offshore gas deposits. The three nations also urged Ankara to end its energy exploration moves in the eastern Mediterranean. The one-day regional summit in Cyprus came amid high tensions between NATO allies, Greece and Turkey, over maritime borders after Ankara sent a research vessel escorted by warships to disputed waters between the Greek islands, southern Turkey and Cyprus. The talks included cooperation in fields ranging from energy to combating terrorism. On Wednesday, Armenia's Prime Minister ruled out a diplomatic solution to the conflict with Azerbaijan over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. The Prime Minister's statement deals a fresh blow to efforts by world powers to secure a sustainable truce. Armenia and Azerbaijan have been engaged in fierce fighting for almost a month over Nagorno-Karabakh, a region of Azerbaijan which is controlled by Armenian separatists. The flare-up of the conflict has left hundreds dead, with world powers so far unable to persuade either side to stop fighting. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said the conflict has not and will not have a diplomatic solution for a long time. The governor of the Nigerian state of Lagos announced on Wednesday that he's ordered an investigation into the shooting of protesters on Tuesday night, when shots were fired into a crowd of demonstrators singing the country's national anthem at the Lekki Toll Plaza in the West African country's sprawling commercial capital.
It is imperative to explain that no sitting governor controls the rules of engagement of the military. I have nonetheless instructed an investigation into the ordered and the adopted rules of engagement employed by the officers and men of the Nigerian army that were deployed to the Lekki toll gate last night.
The Turkish army has begun the withdrawal of its troops from 3 of its observation posts in the de-escalation zone established in the northwestern Syrian province of Idlib and its surroundings. This move foresees the possible start in the near future of a joint Syrian-Russian military operation against the last terrorist strongholds on Syrian ground. Our correspondent Hisham Wanas brings us the details.
Turkey maintains 69 observation posts in Syria, whose objective is to monitor the ceasefire established in accordance with the agreement of zones of distension agreed upon in 2017 between Ankara, Tehran and Moscow, an agreement that was never respected by the radicals, which implied a joint Syrian-Russian military response that led to the liberation of extensive zones of Idlib and Hama during the first month of the current year, areas where 16 Turkish posts were left inactive, among them the 3 mentioned points in the evacuation phase.
The withdrawal being carried out at this time after Turkey had refused to dismantle these observation posts at the request of the Russian side last September indicates that Turkey by this step is trying to reduce the discrepancies and differences with Russia, which recently increased in the files of Libya, Syria and even the case of the region of Nagorno-Karabakh.
3 observation posts will be relocated to other points in the south of Idlib and the northwest corner of Hama, areas occupied by the extremists who, despite the ceasefire established in 2019, have not stopped committing provocation against Syrian military positions and residential areas, an action which Damascus and Moscow warn will have a forceful response if Ankara fails to stop it through its troops operating on Syrian ground.
Without any doubt, there will be a military operation to clear the Syrian province of Idlib from the terrorist bands, and the current withdrawal of the Turkish troops from several areas of this province is a clear indication of the imminent start of this operation, since the Turkish military presence on Syrian ground did not help to fulfill the agreement of the de-escalation zones reached in the framework of the talks of Astana with Russia and the other guarantor countries.
3 of the 4 de-escalation zones agreed in 2017 during the negotiations in Astana, sponsored by Russia, Turkey and Iran, went under Damascus control in 2018. The 4th zone, covering areas of Idlib and parts of the neighboring provinces of Latakia, Hama and Aleppo, remains occupied by al-Nusra terrorists, a situation that the Syrian government promises to change either through diplomatic or military means.
Hisham Wannous, teleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.